Rocky Reginald here. Do you want to know how to play The Thing, but want more than just some basic ability breakdown? Good. I've got a roadmap on screen and timestamps in the description, so give me the old like and subscribe and let's get going. Purpose in team. The Thing is an aggro tank, a dive and disruption tank, an attrition tank, and a peel tank, and a real bully in a fist fight, but most of all he is a skirmisher tank. I understand that most people see him as a brawler tank, and he definitely has a kit that at first glance appears to favor brawl type engagements, but I'm going to actually argue that this is a harmful way to conceptualize him as a tank. He's more of a skirmisher. He fights at close range and then uses one of his mobilities to leave the millisecond things get messy. Then he returns to disrupt and wound the enemy again. Take inspiration from his boxing style and understand that your goal is to get in, throw a few quick jabs, get some haymakers downtown, and then dance on out of there the moment things start getting difficult. Despite being an absolute unit, he really exemplifies the whole float like a butterfly, sting like a bee meme. Engagement techniques. Being the Thing means you've got 5 different ways to initiate fights. This will all seem very self-evident after I explain it, but I've never seen anybody else bother to talk about it. I think it's basically the single most important aspect of playing him well. So here they are. The walk, the circuit, the charge, the follow, and the corner. Now, understanding which to choose and when comes with experience, and you'll just have to get that from playing, but choosing the wrong ones is going to just be feeding, so you're going to want to keep these in mind as you're learning to play this character. The walk. In 80% of cases, you do not actually want to burn your charge to aggress on the enemy team. The reason for this is manifold, but let me give you the most pressing few. Yancey's Street Charge is freaking stacked as an ability. It's your CC immunity, your only independent mobility, your only serious self-sustained personal shielding. It also hampers enemy dive character mobility and does minor damage and disruption to enemies. And all of this happens on one fairly long cooldown. So if you are spending it to shove yourself into a 1v6 in a neutral fight, you cannot do any of those other things I just listed, and you are likely to die. Thus, walking in, preferably using some terrain as cover, is much better than charging in most of the time. The circuit. Okay, now this one is more of a harassment technique, and you have to gauge the enemy's burst DPS or you can die in the attempt. Also, don't do this if they have a Groot. Simply put, you run in with Yancey Charge, but you just turn right around and run back to your team. The entire purpose of this is just to flush out the enemy a bit, do a bit of harassment, maybe shake things loose, and get the fight out of poke mode. You have to be careful not to do this too much, because it can become an ult battery for the enemy team. However, it is a great way to keep spatial pressure up when you don't have much else to do in a poke fight. It also works great around a payload. This works a lot better at lower ranks as compared to upper ones because the panic reaction from the enemy is greater and the ability of the enemy to punish you if you make a wrong turn is lower. The charge. Yancey's Street Charge is actually a great gap closer, obviously. It can be used as a fight initiator, and sometimes it needs to be. Sometimes you just need to get in there and shake things up right now and not after a bunch of feet shuffling. This engage is very risky for you, for all the reasons already mentioned, so here is one absolute no violations allowed rule for doing this engage. Always use this engage within the 20-meter range of your team. You should never be pushing farther than that. If you're running way out in front of your team and cannot use your leap to get back to your team, you are basically free food for the enemy. This is the singular most common mistake rookie things make and is awful to watch. You cannot 1v6 without support, and it's certainly not without any self-sustain from your sprint shielding or jump damage reduction. It's also wise if you can to get that damage reduction before one of these charges. The follow. I really love this particular technique, and it plays really well with any other melee or dive hero. You simply let them go in first and Goomba them with your jump. This gives both of you a damage reduction and gives the enemy a surprising new thing-shaped problem to deal with at the same time. The trick with this technique is to keep your charge ready unless you absolutely need it, or unless you're certain you have a team to jump to bail out. If so, you can use charge as part of a combo to help burn someone down alongside your partner in crime. The corner. The Thing has a bit of a problem. He's a melee hero with limited range on his haymaker. He's big, he has no shield, so how do you deal with the big gun lines when fighting from a neutral position? The answer is the all-powerful right angle. Pick a corner and loiter it. let your DPS do their job. On the defense, this actually works extremely well because you can just haunt a corner like some kind of evil haymaker ghost. But on offense, you're going to need to feel out the enemy a bit and understand when pressure is building up, and you can hop around a corner with a haymaker or two before either dipping back or going in. Holding a corner is actually holding space, so you're still being useful and you're not building enemy ult charge by being behind a wall. If you have no second tank, this can feel very passive, but it's sometimes necessary, and it can lure the enemy into your strike zone for you to bully and turn their push into your team into a rout. Okay, with all that settled, let's talk about 3 basic battle plans I use. Battle plans. Number 1, hot feet. This is my default battle plan, especially when solo tanking, but still my default. For 80% of my games, this is kind of all I do. It's basically the skirmish game plan, but in melee. I engage into the enemy via a walk or a corner, then a walk, and I start fighting. I usually try to pick up damage reduction from someone before I walk in. As often as possible, I actually try to choose one of my ranged DPS to do this on because it lets them take a slightly more aggressive position for about 3 seconds. Then I brawl until I hit something around half my health pool remaining, and from here I will use the anti-streak charge to run the heck away back to my healers. However, I do not cancel the charge on top of my heals. I just sprint towards the heals, leveraging that 200 shields to provide a buffer for safety as I get healed up, then I turn right back around and run back into the enemy team. I slam and re-engage. From here, I'm going to start cycling abilities. Either I'll jump out of the fight with Embattled Leap, then walk back in, or I'll jump onto someone who is with me in the fight to help us both sustain. Once the anti-charge comes back off cooldown, I'll need to gauge if we are winning or losing, or if there's ults I need to watch out for, or whatever. I can leverage the charge to either avoid an ult or avoid a death by doing another circuit. This back and forth, in and out playstyle is fundamentally how I spend my cooldowns and how I disrupt the enemy formation to keep myself alive at the same time. I am creating unpredictable pressure. Anti-dive. At times, the enemy team's dive heroes are the reason we are losing. Sometimes the team won't turn around in time to make a difference, or simply cannot manage to kill that enemy, whatever it is. Even as a solo tank, though far better as a duo tank setup, I will sometimes take a simple backline position and just camp my own heals. As soon as the diver shows off their ugly face, I jump the healer they're targeting and slam and start throwing haymakers to drive them off. To be honest, I rarely sync kills this way without the DPS turning around and shooting the diver, but even if they don't, if I manage to zone out that dive hero repeatedly over and over and prevent him from getting picks, and my team can still get heals, so at worst it ends up shaking out to a 5v5 anyway. This does not always work, and Venom Spider-Man combos cannot be countered this way without a lot of help. So just take that with a grain of salt, but understand that it is a method you can use in some circumstances. Dive. I hope it's clear to everybody already that Thing's dive game is solid, but team reliant. You don't go in first, you go in second, and you use your Embattled Leap to hop on your buddy's head for team damage reduction. It's fun, it works, and when it's time to leave, you just sprint away. The only hard part here is you need to be sure you are diving within healer line of sight. You are not able to self-sustain. If you don't get in and get out, you lose, and you need healing to stay active. Okay, we've gone deep, but let's add a bit of girth to our analysis here so we can be as wide as the Thing. So here's the theoreticals. Advantages. As a tank, Thing has great burst damage and a very disruption and attention-grabbing playstyle. He's able to control the fight and isn't able to be pushed around himself. He does the pushing. His kit is very versatile and he solves for a lot of problems like Wolverine or divers and shield tanks. He can easily secure kills on wounded targets with a thick 90 damage cleave-through punch that is hard for healers to always fend off. It's sometimes very easy to drive out cooldowns by hitting multiple targets with one haymaker, surprising everyone and getting that cooldown use. It's easy for him to hit lots of people in form of his very strong ultimate and burn enemy cooldowns quickly this way. Disadvantages. The Thing can suffer in the face of ranged burst damage and lacks heal independent sustain. He also has kind of low DPS and a well-telegraphed burst damage attack, leaving him open to dodges, stuns, and avoidance. He's not the most reliable choice to win 1v1s against DPS compared to other tanks, and due to his low DPS himself, he really needs someone else to tee up the low health bars for him to haymake. This all makes him a very team-oriented and dependent tank. If his team isn't playing with and around him, he can get caught out and burned down with relative ease. For a 1-star hero, he is actually very positionally and technically challenging, with hugely stacked multi-use case abilities on long timers. Did you use your Yancy Street Charge to stop that Black Panther from getting away? Oh, well, what a shame for you. The Doctor Strange is going to ult and you don't have CC immunity for 10 seconds. Good matchups. So here's the key detail. The Thing does not solo well. He is team reliant, so his matchups in my Doom match experiments have generally gone pretty badly, though not as bad as my Human Torch experiments. he just lacks independent sustain. Throw Thor in a Doom match and he's rocking kills all the game long and not dying. The Thing, let's just be honest, it's pretty hard. So we have to talk about team situations. In team games, Ben really clobbers shield tanks and literally any other tank pretty effectively, except Groot and Thor, and performs well into melee and dive heroes. Black Panther, Spider-Man, Magic, whatever. He just doesn't care about what a lot of these kits offer their heroes and his tools, and he has tools to heavily disrupt them or scare them off. Bad matchups. The Thing is easily punished by high burst and sustained damage from range. Oh, note on the dive. The Thing can also really punish healers pretty effectively with his burst damage, though he needs a little help. If he can get someone low, he can usually drive them over the finish line himself. Bad matchups. The Thing is easily punished by high burst and sustained damage from range. Rocket, Team Up, Powered Punisher, Bucky, Hela, Namor, all the usual suspects are really hard to play into, especially if they can actually aim. If the heals and kill pressure aren't being pumped out by your team, you're going to melt under the unrestricted and unpressured gaze of these types of DPS players. A tank that absolutely is a pain to fight against, as Ben, is Penny. Her mines plus her spiders can make it hard to pick good melee positions and play smart corners. Though you can use your charge to just blow past her minefield, not her spiders mind you, but really worse than all of that is her stupid web shot. She can use this stupid stun to cancel your ult, cancel your haymaker, cancel your leap, cancel your life. It's super annoying to play into a good Penny as the Thing. And while Penny is considered a bottom tier tank for your average Celestial and above player, for the vast majority of players in my experience, Penny isn't being countered effectively, even by GM DPS in half the games I play, so she's just a horrible annoyance to deal with. The other main challenges for the Thing are Groot and Thor. Groot isn't too bad on his own, but his accursed walls absolutely hard counter your kit. I'm talking about your run, your jump, your team's healing, without which you are toast. Plus, he pumps out great damage himself. Thor is a different kind of problem. He just pumps out a lot of damage and has really good self-sustain and mobility. He is always playing against you on his terms, and so he wins any 1v1 and has great odds in a team fight of putting you down before you ever threaten his health pool. Good pairings. On the whole, Thing performs at his peak in my opinion as a duo tank to literally any other tank, even Penny. I know that everyone is hot on Magneto, and he's a solid choice as a line stabilizer that anchors the position of the fight and defines the line of scrimmage. However, I've seen the Thing and Thor throw hands into enemy teams without any remorse, and it's really fun to watch, or do. I even played a game with the Thing, Thor, and Mr. Fantastic that was downright hysterical and firmly oppressive for the enemy team. So here's the main element of the conversation. The Thing needs good kill pressure behind him to help lower health bars to his 90 damage haymaker breakpoint, and great healing to sustain his game plan. For this reason, I'm going to suggest some team comps as follows. Team composition. A totally normal 2-2-2 comp, or a 2-1-3 comp where Mantis or something is in play to help sync a limbs by buffing the DPS. Rocket can work with Punisher or Bucky too. A 1-3-2 comp can also be effective at times, but it's a lot harder on Thing, and you might have just been better off on Magneto in most cases. The key differentiator on a 1-3-2 working and being a disaster is how much pick pressure your DPS can produce. If they're not pumping them out for any reason, their fault or not, you need to be switching off the Thing or switch a DPS onto the tank slot. Mr. Fantastic as a DPS in a 1-3-2 comp is silly, but can work and give you better frontline staying power if you're goofball maxing. I have certainly won games that way, and it's really amusing. I have also certainly won games as a 3-1-2 comp as well, but I do not recommend this because it doesn't have enough damage output to deal with a lot of problems. In general, I don't think the Thing is truly a bad solo tank, not the way some people do, but he does not line hold the way some people prefer and are more used to. So the neutral fight can feel and even be more challenging for DPS players. But let's be also honest and say that this kind of fighting can be a fair bit harder, especially against some compositions and with some compositions on your team. So if it's not working, just be honest about it and shift things up. In my experience from quick play, the Thing is very free and strong in lower elo games where things are all mixed up, where it's harder to punish his misplays. But as soon as you hit, from my memory, plat, where people can start to actually aim and occasionally understand what teamwork means, it becomes much more optimal to just run a 2-2-2. In Diamond and above, I would still say that 2-2-2 is optimal, but the 1-3-2 becomes more possible as cracked DPS players really start to show up there. Attack patterns and key combos. I've got a short yarn to spend on attack patterns. Okay, so here's the thread. The thing has literally just a 1-2 punch and a haymaker. There is nothing complex going on here. At best, you can spend Yancey Street Charge to do a little extra damage, but the real serious questions are, is haymaker or normal punch better, and what combo do I use? I did some basic testing and I found out a few important facts. Normal punches actually do more DPS than haymaker. Mixing normal punches into your haymaker results in reduced TTK, compared to just doing haymakers. Normal punches actually have the fastest TTK. Just doing haymakers results in a 3.5 seconds worse time to kill into Groot compared to normal punches or mixed combos. Number 4, there is a 1 second difference between canceling or not canceling your second punch out of your 1-2 combo into haymaker in favor of not canceling your second punch. If you can land the 1-2 combo and then haymaker, that's actually your fastest TTK. So here's the tips and tricks. It's absolutely worth it, in some cases, to use your charge to annihilate terrain and simplify the battlefield for your team. Number 2, Thing's knockup on Yancey Street Charge is so high that oftentimes in my experience, enemies hit by it can use their mobilities and are not affected by the anti-mobility field for more than a split second. This means that all the good divers are going to just leave the second after you hit them with it. I've seen Black Panthers, Spider-Man Magics, and Captain Americas all just hit the apogee of the knockup and send themselves out. The best thing I can say is that it's nice that they're leaving now, but your team really needs to be there to follow up or you will achieve little else than scaring them off. Outro. Well, it seems to me that's about all I have to say on this subject. Without any further ado, warm regards.
Reginald.
I would like to take a moment to express my genuine and significant gratitude to Bonehead for becoming my first Oath Taker level member. Your support really does mean a lot to me and has made it so much easier for me to continue to justify the amount of effort I pour into this channel. I'd also like to thank Miles Williams Lewis, Joseph Davison, Shackleford, and McSpan for supporting my channel through my Adept level membership. Your atypical support really means a lot to me, and I appreciate it. I'd also like to extend a thank you to the rest of my members. Support helps the channel a lot. If you would like to become a member of this channel, there is a link in the description below and a join button next to the subscribe button. Thank you all so much for visiting. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.